With Mom today.
Okay.
All right. Today is May 13th, 2026, and we're resuming our little talks.
Sounds like a plan.
All right. So today, let's talk about stories with Mom. So that would be your first wife because you've since remarried.
Correct.
So we already talked about the blind date and how she looked so young and she thought you looked so old. You
Yep.
had just returned from the service. You ended up getting married. And I think in previous sessions you talked that my grandpa, your father-in-law Paul, was just like, well, what can I do about it? You're getting married, right? Because you did try to do the right thing. Well,
Yep.
the traditional thing and ask for her hand in marriage kind of thing.
Yep.
And you waited till she turned 18. Both your birthdays in October.
Yep.
And now that's perhaps something to touch on. How far apart are you in age?
Well, I think it's.
Well, I know the answer. I just want to give you a chance to talk.
Well, I know, but my brain doesn't do math very good, especially when I wasn't expected.
Well, you're 1947 and she's 1950, and you're both in
Sounds
October.
like 3 years to me.
3 years. So you didn't know each other in high school.
Nope.
Did you overlap with any of her siblings in high school?
But yeah, Byron was there, and probably Chris too. But I didn't know really either one of them. Byron
is younger than you?
Yes.
Okay. And Chris
was older.
Chris at the time, Uncle Chris has changed his name. He used to be
Yes.
Paul Leighton Blood, and now he's William Christopher Montgomery. So when we reference Chris, he changed his name for whatever his reasons were. But anyway, but he was Paul at the time.
Yeah.
Paul the younger, and he was a year or so ahead of you in school.
Yes. At that time, he was over when we met, he was over in Sicily, I believe, he was in the Air Force.
Okay.
And yeah, that was part of the conversation that first night. One of the things she says, my big brother's in the military too. I said, well, that's good.
Found out he was Air Force, and you weren't
Yeah.
quite as impressed.
Well, no, I was still impressed. And not only that, he was a smart guy. He was a bright guy. He was in what they call in Army, it's Fire Direction Center, but there it is. In the Air Force, it was a little different. But what it is, it's an area that controls the communications and encryptions and controls a lot of secret documents and things that's under the control of that particular part of the military. So, and they don't let people in that branch unless they got at least about 150 IQ. So I think Uncle Paul was probably a pretty smart dude.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. He's still living. He's up in Boise now.
Yeah.
So he's a widower. His wife passed away. Aunt Sana passed away 3 or 4 years ago at this point. I don't remember. I attended the funeral. I just don't remember how many years ago it was. But anyway, he's got a number of his kids up in Idaho now. So he's probably they are probably the aunt and uncle that growing up I knew the best because they were out in California with us.
Yes.
And we saw them pretty regular. Not to say Roy wasn't out there, but we didn't see much of Roy.
No, I saw Roy every day, but you didn't. No, it was Sharon was a little aloof, and she wasn't shy at all. She just said, she didn't want any kids around. Well, she's got her wish now because two of her kids are dead.
2 of her 3 is it Jill? Is that the?
Jill's still alive.
And that's her middle daughter.
Yeah.
So Vicky's gone and Ryan's gone.
Yeah.
Ryan was a year ahead of me in school, so I bumped into him in junior high and high school, but we didn't go to the same elementary school. So they lived relatively close, but he was, like I said, he was, I don't know, I probably saw him more than I say I ever bumped into your brother Lloyd, but as far as aunts and uncles go, Uncle Paul and Aunt Sana were the ones I probably saw the most. And then eventually Becky married, because she was younger than Mom. She eventually married, but they lived in Utah, so we saw them once or twice a year. So
Well,
I
and
didn't know
Becky
they were.
actually came down and lived with us for a while.
Yeah, and I think we'll probably touch on that as we talk about Mom. So back to Mom. So you go on that blind date, and of course, if it wasn't for the fiasco of the other couple
Yeah,
getting in a tiff and you guys having something to talk about, I don't know that would have even resulted in a second date because you weren't really hitting it off.
yeah. No, at that time, I was really considering going back in the military because all of the plans that I had made that I wanted to execute when I got out of the service were kind of getting shot down, and out of necessity had to do other things, and so I thought,
Well,
why am I still here?
well, not to interrupt, but you came home from the service with a little bit of a savings you had accumulated from not having many expenses and being a little bit of a loan shark, right?
Yeah, and also being just cheap.
Okay. So you had that, but that ended up being something that immediately went into
Well,
extending relief to your parents,
Yeah.
right? Because they were in trouble.
yeah, they were, and so that didn't happen, but and and I I really didn't have any other dates. The only other date that I remember having was when I was at uh, LDS Business College. I was I was I had a practice set that I had to do for accounting, and accounting came very easy to me for some reason, but I hated writing in the little blocks, and I mean, I understood it, but it was a lot of handwork. And there was this gal, her name was Pamela Coffin, that was in my class that was just a whiz, and she was a little bit of a pest. But she cut a deal with me that she'd do my practice set if I'd take her to the school dance. And so I did. I mean, she did the practice set, and I came through, and I took her to the school dance, and but that was the end of that.
Nothing more came of that.
Yeah,
That was a one and done.
yeah, she went back to Maine, was where she is from, Brewer, Maine. I remember that. But then, like I say, I just worked, and I was heavily contemplating going back in the military. And I've thought about this. We hit on this another time. That was when I also went to work for Lake Lincoln Mercury,
Mm-hmm.
which was at 633 South Main. That was my first car job, and it's also my first boss in the car business was Norm Garrett, and he was the general manager of that store. I only worked there a couple of days. It was,
Yeah, because their idea of getting you to cut your teeth was to go drop you off somewhere in the city and tell you
Well-
to find somebody to bring back to buy a car.
Yep. Plus that, I each morning, the couple of days I did work, I had to go check out my crew chief out of jail because he was on probation, and he'd get checked out, bring him to work, and he'd be able to be at work all day. And at the end of the day, we'd take him back, put him back in jail. It was quite a crew.
Car business was a little more Wild West back then.
Oh, a little, yeah, a lot more. Yeah. But that short little stint of time proved to be down the road a big deal.
Influential in your life.
Yeah, because of course he went on to have Spartan Motors in Murray, which was a AMC Jeep dealer, and a Fiat, and not Fiat, Renault. And that's where Mike Leatham, or not Mike Leatham, Mike Wiseman
Mike Wiseman came out
hired
of that.
on with him, and it was through
Didn't
that.
Jim work there? Jim Harrison worked there at one point too?
No, Jim worked for Larry Miller Toyota as a
Oh,
mechanic.
mechanic. Okay.
And then he went to California and he worked up in Squaw Valley on the ski machinery
Right,
up
because
there.
he wanted to ski.
And then he came to Love, and that's where I met him. But
Anyway, so influential time, Norm Garrett.
Yep.
Even though it only lasted a few days, you made a connection there that would end up paying you dividends down the road.
certainly did, absolutely.
So you go out. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Do you have more to say? I was just
No.
trying to move you along to the.
I was trying to go that way too, so
Okay.
we're heading in the same direction.
Anyway, so you go out on the date with mom. You guys hit it off. And you come home and tell your mother what after that first date? This is the way I remember the story. That you had met.
My partner.
Yeah, you'd come home and said that you'd found your wife, right? Your
Yep.
future bride. Don't know if mom was in on that yet, but
No, she wasn't.
But you had a strong enough of opinion of her and of that date, the way it ended, that you went home and told your mother that you'd found the girl you were going to marry.
Yep. And we then I built my schedule kind of around her. I mean, I was working nights. I was going to school, but I made it so that I could pick her up from beauty college,
Mm-hmm.
and I did that. And I also had bought, when I first got home, I bought a '66 Corvair Monza Spider convertible, little car, and that was my main transportation. But I also, at that time, is when I got tied in with Tulane. I tried the car dealership, that didn't work, and then
So then you basically went out and became your own little tiny used car lot
Yeah,
of onesie twosies.
yeah, Tulane. Actually, Tom Tolman was the principal of the seminary at high school, and he and John Sidaway, who was a little ahead of me in school, but he was I don't know whether he was the class officer or whether he was the student body president, but somehow I got tied in with those guys, and so I was licensed because I went to work for Light, and so I moved my license over to Tulane, and I would buy a car and sell a car pretty much just one at a time. And so when I did that, now I offered to let Beth have the Corvair, and her dad said no, so I didn't pursue that. But there were times when I would let her borrow the car. And the first one that she borrowed was a '67 Ford Torino GT, yellow, black stripes. It was kind of a fancy
So
car.
that was a used car, but it was still pretty new because
Oh,
you guys got married in 1968. So this
I
is
know.
the summer of 1968 when this is going down.
Yeah.
Okay,
Anyway,
so the car's a year old, maybe.
she took that car and she was going back and forth to work, and that day I had something else that I was involved in, but she was backing out and in front of the beauty parlor, and she hit another car.
That was right there on what, Main and
Yeah.
Bountiful.
Yeah, right downtown Maine. Anyway, she wrecked that car, and I had to get, I got it fixed, but of course it was her. It's kind of a trait, I think, with women. I'm not.
You're gonna get yourself in trouble here.
That's all right. I've been in trouble all my life. It was everybody else's fault. Okay, but anyway, so we got it fixed, and I ended up selling that car to Jim Bowe, which is a girlfriend of your mother's that lived right just 2 houses down from her there in Bountiful. And I knew Jim. He was in my class. we'd done other things together. Anyway, I sold him that car, and I went and bought a brand new 69 Fairlane coupe, formal top, that was back in vinyl top days. That was your mother and I's first car. When we made the commitment that we were getting married, then seemed to mellow at her dad's house so that she could drive my car a little more. And with 348 miles on it, she took it down to the local grocery store and parked and went and got her groceries and come back out and put her groceries in the car and backed out, hit another guy.
So
we got
you haven't even got married yet, and she's already wrinkled 2 cars on you, huh?
Yep. No, but anyway, that was fine. And we had that car for quite a while, up until 80, I guess. Because in 1980, one day I came home from work, and it was at Firestone.
That would have been 1970 then, because 1980 would have.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
1970. Yeah. You keep me straight here. Anyway, in 1970, might have even been 71, might have been about the time you got born. She came home with a Plymouth Barracuda, and she was proud of the punch of that car.
She just traded it in without you even knowing it was going to happen, huh?
No, at that time I had the Firestone Company truck, and also I had a 58 Shiv step side that I had even before I got my Firestone truck, but I sold that. But it was not a bad old truck, but it was just an old truck.
Is that the truck that you had your experience with your grandfather in?
No.
Okay, so that was a different truck. Okay, maybe we'll touch on that either now or another time. But anyway, so you guys eventually tie the knot. You get married in the Salt Lake Temple.
Yep.
And we may have touched on this before, but did you honeymoon or did you go right back to work?
No, we did. Her mother and Beth created her dress, and it was beautiful. She did a really nice job. And her mother did the refreshments and everything. Our reception was held at her parents' chapel there, just off of Alberta.
Right.
And somebody, I don't remember who. Dennis was my best man, but somebody got me excited because they tried to kidnap Beth when we were going to leave.
That seems like a common thing. I remember being a little kid going to Becky's wedding, and they were trying to separate the bride and groom before the wedding night.
I got very angry, and so that fun was over with. And then we stayed at a place called Roadway Inn, which it's still there. It's right on either the off-ramp or on-ramp, or it might even be between the two, 5th South and 6th South. And that's where we stayed that first night, and that was a nice place. Then we got up the next morning, we went over to what was a Ramada Inn, which is over on Main Street, and we went over there, and we had, I remember having scrambled eggs and mushrooms and stuff in it, and it was good. We went there often after that. That was kind of a fun place for us. But then we took off for California, and we drove to, the first day we made it to Lovelock, Nevada. And Lovelock, Nevada, we checked into the motel, and I think everything was going pretty good, except this was pretty new for us, and knowing what to do and when to do it. And I remember your mother had me go out and get something. I don't remember what, but I had to go find a store and buy something that she needed. And then I came back, and then we went on to San Francisco. Actually, we went to Oakland. Down by the Oakland Raiders Stadium, there was a hotel down there that after years later, when we went to go back, it had been turned into a little X-rated place, but at the time it was a nice place. But we stayed there, and from there we went over to San Francisco. I remember going over to San Francisco and finding a laundromat to do the laundry, and it was a pleasant week. We spent a week goofing off down in the Bay Area, and then we came home.
Was Roy already living out that way? So
Yeah, Roy was there. I don't know that yes, we did. We did go to Roy's house. I got a funny story about that. We went over to Roy's house, and a few years earlier, when I was in Germany, I had sent home a lamp for a Christmas present for Roy. And this lamp was in his family room, and it was kind of leaning up against the wall. And I would look at it, and I said, "Hi, would you like that?" He says, "Yeah, it came. It was broken." I said, "Oh yeah." He says, "Yeah, Sharon put it together and got it to work, but it won't stand up. It has to lean against the wall." I said, "Okay." Well, so while we're sitting there, I go get the lamp, like right in that corner, it's misassembled. So I take it all apart, put it all back, and it stands up. Point. Whoa!
So she got it.
Yeah.
She just didn't put it together in the right order, and so it was leaning.
Yep. But yeah, we had a good time. I remember we went to the zoo over in San Francisco. We went to there's a place out there where you're at the point and you're looking down. There's a rock and full of got a lot of seals on it, and went down to the wharf. Went down to
Like Pier was it Pier
Ghirardelli
39?
Square.
Pier 49?
Ghirardelli Square.
Yep, with the chocolates and whatnot.
Rode the trolley cars up and down the hills.
Just did the touristy things
Yeah,
in San Francisco.
And then we came back, and we went to work.
Set up house and
Yeah.
okay. And you bounced around Bountiful and whatnot, and
Not for long. We were there for a very short time. And I don't know why we left there, because it was a nice place and it was brand new at the time. It had just been built. But we moved from there up to 3rd Avenue,
so avenues.
and which was just up the street from LDS Business College. And I got with the people at LDS Business College and arranged for your mother to get a scholarship. And so she went to LDS Business College for a while, and I was working at Firestone. And she'd seen this little house over on Orchard Drive when we go out to see her mother or whatever, that she really liked, and it had a for rent sign on it, and I was going to go see it. And I didn't go see it. And by the time we finally were going to go see it, it had been rented. She was really brokenhearted about that. But about 90 days later, for sale sign was up and the light was on, and we stopped. And the guy was in there cleaning up. He'd got a bad tenant, and they really tore the place up. But your mother just loved that place. She wanted that place so bad. So she told him, she said, "We'll take it and we'll clean it up and we'll do this and we'll do that." And that lasted for a little while. And that was right at the time when Firestone sent me to training. So that would have been
It was just the two of you.
Yeah,
Kristen hadn't come along yet.
Kristen wasn't born yet, so Kristen was born from Granger, so that would have been 69, I guess.
Well, yeah,
January of 69.
because her birthday is July of 70.
Okay, well, it may have January of 70 then.
Okay.
That's probably
So did you stay in that little bountiful house, the fixer-upper, that the
For-
previous tenants until you went to Granger? Did you go
Yes,
from that
yes,
house to Granger?
yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
your first home you bought, because you said for sale sign, but that was a rental in Bountiful.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you had the little split entry home in Granger built. And Granger's is now West Valley City, but at the time it was unincorporated county, and so
Yeah,
Granger was just
yeah.
a territory in there like Magna or Kearns or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, or Hunter.
It was in, there were homes going up everywhere at that time, and there were some fairly decent things, and things were pretty prosperous around. This one was called Valley Downs, was the name of the subdivision, and it was about 25, 30 homes. And we bought one that was under construction. Your mother got to pick the colors and the carpet and everything.
The vinyl floor or
Yeah.
whatever, right?
And of course, she was very pregnant at that time. We moved in there probably in May, and then Kristen came along in July. And
Do you remember what you paid for the house?
yep, $17,200.
I remember you making a comment in the 80s that when you bought, I don't know if it was the Lumina car or if it was the Chevy Astro van, but that you had paid more for that car than you did your first house.
Yeah, it probably might have been the Astrovan. The Astrovan was one of the more expensive ones that I bought for the family, but
that would have been mid to late 80s when that one went down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I paid more for a car than you did your first house. That hasn't happened to me yet, but I imagine if inflation's marching along, the day may come.
yeah, it's getting closer and closer, that's for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so now you're in Granger. What color was the house?
Green.
Green. That was my memory too. I mean, again, I was really little. You must have stayed there at least till I was 4.
If you go there today, it's green.
Still green, huh?
Yep, I think it's the same paint. But
Yeah, I have very few memories of that house, but I do remember, like I could probably sketch out a rough floor plan upstairs. I couldn't do anything for you for downstairs in the basement. I didn't know that. I can't remember that well enough, but
I know them both real well.
But I do have a memory of, and we may have said this before, but I remember the doorbell ringing and me and my little legs, I was going to go down the little steps to get it, and before I could get to the bottom, you just kind of leapt over because it was only what 4 or 5 steps.
Yeah,
I went
over
leapt,
the side.
Yeah, you just leapt over the railing and from the living room down onto the landing. It was like Superman landing. It just boom, and you beat me to the front door. So.
Yeah.
And we had a couple of dogs that came in and out of there, Herkimer
Yeah.
Peabody and some other little puppy that didn't survive the winter night. And
I have a distorted view on Herkimer Peabody. You think Herkimer Peabody was the St. Bernard?
mm-hmm. That's what I remember.
I thought it was that black lab in Concord.
No, the black lab in Concord is Toby.
Toby, okay, that sounds better. I like that better anyway.
Yeah,
I always called the St. Bernard Lumpy because he had that broken foot and he walked.
Yeah, don't know about that. I just know that after the second time of taking him to the vet to put him back together from him trying to escape out the back, because I don't know that we had too much of a traditional fence around there. We just had like barbed wire and.
No, we actually had a chain link fence, but it was a low one around the front. Now
Okay.
the back was barbed wire.
That's what I was saying. He would go out and he would get between the barbed wire and the neighbor's fence and push himself along down because the barbed wire fence ran and the neighbor put their fence right up against it. Well, he would get in between the barbed wire and the wooden fence, and as he would drag himself down there, the barbed wire would cut his sides open.
Yeah.
And you put him back together the first time. The second time, you just had to put him down. The damage was too extensive, or he just couldn't learn, or
Yeah,
something.
I wasn't there for either one of those. I was in California when that happened. You and your mother and the girls were
Yeah,
there.
because Because Herkimer Peabody didn't make the trip to California.
No. Nope, he didn't. In fact, we went dogless for a while down there until we got Toby, and he was destructive.
So let's go to California real quick. So the first place you land in California is
Palmyra Place,
Palmyra Place. That had the
San Ramon.
San Ramon, and I think we talked about how one of your neighbors was played in the NFL, and
We actually had two famous neighbors, but the best one was next door was Pete Banaszak.
and that was the one that you talked into him mowing your lawn for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and we were just a couple doors down from the pool, and it had all those rocks in the front yard, which Chris and I loved, like getting on our butts and sliding through the rocks down because your front yard was very sloped.
Yep.
And that would just mess up all the rocks. So we, and is that I want? I know you and Mom got married in the temple.
Yes.
But did you go through kind of a period of, are we going to stay active? We're not going to stay active?
No. We really didn't.
Well, I'm just wondering where the wine tasting thing came in.
I think we were always treading the line a little bit, and she did.
Let's tell that story. Was that when you guys were in Palmyra Place? You got invited to some Napa Valley wine tasting thing?
It might have been. Probably was. You're probably right. The way it goes is, I had a customer at the store who was part of the Montclair Women's Club. Now, Montclair is a district in Oakland that's one of the real uppity ones. And I went there myself to the Montclair Women's Club, and I did a presentation to the club and talked to them about the car business and how anyway. And they were very, very friendly. And they said, we're having a big party, and we've got these wineries that are going to come, and we're going to have a wine tasting, and we'd like to invite you and your wife. And so we went. We went to this wine tasting, and we didn't know nothing about wine. They different colors and light and dark and this and that, but they had numbers. Each of these different ones had numbers, and some people would swish it around their mouth and spit it out.
Spit it into like a bucket or something because they were just tasting it?
Some people did that. But then there were others, especially if it's one you liked, that you might have to taste that a couple times. Well, number 18 was that number for your mother. Oh, my. And
because there was no harm in just tasting if you're spitting it out, but
yeah, but she wasn't spitting it out, and I wasn't spitting it out either. But it was a new experience, something we'd never done before, and your mother, she didn't have anything in common with these ladies. Neither did I really, but they had been gracious enough to invite us, and I was trying to reciprocate and be nice to them. And your mom was a little bored, so she thought, I think I could go try that 18 again. Well, we finally ran out of 18, so then she found some other number. But finally, she was having a hard time standing up. She was staggering.
So she got snockered, huh?
Yep. I took her home, and she was sick as a dog. Oh, boy. Yep. But
and to the best of your knowledge, that's the one and only time that she ever got herself drunk, huh?
as far as I would say drunk. Now, it wasn't the only time we wine tasted, because we decided that was okay. We liked that, but we kept it down to wine tasting, and we did. We went up into Sonoma Valley a couple of times, up to the Russian River at least once. That we went to wineries and we had tasted some wine. We bought some wine at those different wineries, and we would have wine occasionally at the house. by no means were either of us ever a drinker. I used to go to a lot of Lions Club meetings, and most of those, especially the evening meetings, were nothing more than a drunk. But I'd go, and I didn't ever let myself get past 3 drinks. I think I told you, I think we covered that in a different one, where August 6th of 1966 was the last time that I was inebriated.
Right, that was when you bought that fifth or whatever,
Yep.
and you were in the service trying to
Yep.
make your way home, and you end up getting rolled and found
Yep.
yourself waking
Yep.
up on the side of the highway,
That,
inches from cars rolling over your head, and
yeah,
and
that
penniless.
ended my drinking. Ended my drinking days. I still like margaritas to this day. I'll have a margarita once in a while just because I like them. Another one I like is Bailey's Irish Cream. Bailey's Irish Cream in coffee. Oh, I like that. I had that at Boar's Head in Carmel, and the bartender was Clint Eastwood. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, trying to think of some.
Well, we didn't stay, and that was a rental house
Yep.
there in Palmyra Place.
Yep.
The next place we went to was also a rental. It wasn't a townhouse; it was a freestanding home. But this one,
San Mateo.
because Palmyra Place was a rambler, right? It was all one level.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the house that we were living in at the time that your parents came out and your dad ended up passing away over at your brother's house before.
Yep.
And so that would have been what, 1977 when he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then from there we went over to San Mateo. Is that what you said?
San Mateo. Yep.
Yep. And I know because that was my second kindergarten class. That's how I kind of keep track of them. And I remember that house being a pretty new build, like the yard was still going in or something.
Mm-hmm.
Fences going up around it. But you didn't own that one either. That was
No.
also a rental.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed there about a year.
Almost a year to the day.
And I want to say Mom was doing a little daycare out of the house because I remember a kid that she watched named Charlie.
Yep. And also, she had a couple of friends there that they would go bowling.
Oh, yeah, I do remember the bowling alley.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember getting a little rowdy in the daycare portion of it where Jennifer and Tracy were, and I ended up throwing a block or something and hit somebody, and they put me on timeout. And when the lady went into the bathroom, I made a run for it. They had a Dutch door,
Yeah.
and I couldn't, to keep the kids in,
Yeah.
but the parents could come up, and I couldn't open the door, but I could I crawled over the top of it,
Yeah.
and I went out and I escaped from that little Alcatraz there, and Mom never put me in the daycare again when they went bowling. But she bowled quite a bit, but you ended up getting to be a pretty decent bowler there too.
Well, when we were in Oakland, when I lived up in San Ramon, we used to bowl in a league on I think it was Thursday nights. At 9 o'clock, we would go and we met up. Our teammates were Gene McLaughlin, who worked with me, and his wife Anna, which are an interesting story. But and we had a little bowling league, the 4 of us, and we had fun. It was a good time. And then when I left and went to Ceremony, and we moved to San Mateo.
And that was the first house you bought, San Mateo?
No, never bought San Mateo. That was a rental.
Was that the house with Toby too?
No,
No, what? I guess I'm confusing.
we're not too there yet. We're still in 77.
Oh, San Mateo is the one we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought we had moved on from there, but
And
no.
we had some neighbors there. They were the Skeltons. They were from Australia.
Right.
He was the Australian consulate, and his wife, and he had, I think, 3 girls or 4 girls. And they hung out with your mother, and I hung out a little bit with Skelton. I mean, I went to the city with him a couple of times, and showing me his consulate and everything. But And we also went to a dinner at Bing Crosby's house in Hillsboro that was something the Australian consulate was doing with some group, probably to do with the Bing Crosby golf tournament. But that was the first time I ever tasted Vegemite, which is
Nasty.
real nasty stuff. Axle grease with salt. But the Australians, I mean, they cherish this stuff.
Yeah. I think Jennifer's got a story of doing a report in elementary school on Australia and brought in Vegemite as the ethnic food. And the teacher, not knowing what it was, just thought it was took out a cracker and just smeared it nice and heavy on top of it and popped it in his mouth. And it's kind of like horseradish, it's just powerful stuff.
Well,
and
salty.
he just, oh yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's that's it.
So skeletons were there.
Yep. And that was the last time that Gary Overbaugh made his appearance was when we were in San Mateo.
Oh yeah, he came and looked you guys up or something?
He didn't look me up,
Oh.
but he did look your mother up, and your mother told me, and I.
Did you say he was a pilot or something? So
Yeah, he's a private pilot. He had his pilot's license. He was in the Air Force earlier, and not that he flew in the Air Force, because in the Air Force what he was on was he was on duty at the weapons sites where they had nuclear weapons in the ground. He would go
the
there.
silos and things. Yeah.
But I just told him, I said, if you're gonna be a problem, it's gonna be a problem, because I'll call George. George was his father-in-law, George Quist, who used to be your mother's boss, and also happens to be the father of his wife.
Right. Hence the term father-in-law.
Yeah. Anyway, but that was the last. Never, to my knowledge, he never tried again, and that never came up again. And then when in the spring of '78, Ceremony Oldsmobile hired a new general manager, and he and I didn't see eye to eye, and so it just happened that that was when Weaver called me and told me he'd never talk to me again if I'd come back. And that was good. So that is where we got Herkimer. Roy had a friend named Roger. He was a neat guy. He was a real estate guy, really.
Oh, you mean Toby? Is that where we got Toby?
No, that's where we got Magnolia.
Oh, you said Herkimer, so I thought you were talking about dogs.
I did.
Yeah, you said that's where we got Herkimer.
Well,
And so I thought you
no,
were going
that
back to
was-
dogs.
no.
Okay, so that's where we got Magnolia.
I
That
got
was the
lost
next.
there.
That's the next place. That's the
Yeah.
house that the train set was built at.
Yes.
That was the one with two garage openings for two
Yeah.
garage door, but no garage door on the back,
Right.
and so it was left open. And that's why Toby got in there to the furniture that was being stored in the garage and ripped it apart.
Yeah, it was a really little house, and we had more furniture than we had a house, so we had to stuff a lot of stuff in there.
And he ended up tearing it up.
He destroyed it.
I just remember there were landmines. That's what we always called the little piles of poop in the backyard. There were landmines everywhere. That dog was a terror.
Yeah. Anyway, we ended up not taking him with us on the next move, and he went down the street to Surveys or whatever their name were, the girls down the street. And anyway, Roger Scott got us that house, and it wasn't working out. And then we got the train set, and now it was really small. So I don't know how in the world he ever pulled it off, but he did. He put together a trade of 4 different properties, and when the trade was done, we were in Pleasant Hill.
Okay. And
And
that would have been a big upgrade then.
Oh, it was. That was a nice house.
Yep.
That was a nice.
If I remember correctly, that had the master bedroom on the main level,
Yep.
tucked behind the garage and the family room.
Yep.
It had a formal dining room that you could access from the kitchen through a little pocket door that then flowed out into the front room where the living room was.
Yep.
Family room was in the back corner, like a great room with the yellow Formica counter,
Mm-hmm.
and the family room all flowing in there. And then the backyard, of course, you could go out from there. And then upstairs were 3 bedrooms, just pretty much in a row, boom, boom,
Yep.
boom, with a bathroom mixed in there somewhere.
Yep.
Yep, I remember that was that. Yeah, we weren't in that
No.
other house very long.
Or that one.
No, because both of those were first grade for me, and I only went to first
Yeah.
grade once, right?
Yeah.
So we started at first grade one place, finished first grade in the other, and then the Dawn Star must have.
Yeah, it was right after we got into Pleasant Hill. In fact, your mother and the kids, they went to
Because
see.
second grade was Anchorage Avenue, the house we were living in,
Yeah.
and that would have been the time that Roy was able to buy Dawn Star out in Santa Cruz.
When that happened was we got the Pleasant Hill house. We did a lot of wallpaper and stuff. I mean, we put a lot of sweat equity into that house a little bit. But it came out really nice. And then your mother decided she wanted to go up to her mother's. So you and her and everybody else, they all went to Bountiful, and that was when I took that call from Dawn Star, and so then we started going towards that, and I moved there on September 1st. Now, because we'd bought those houses so close together, the law in California at the time said that if I bought another house and tried to roll it, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah, you get property capital gains and whatnot, right?
on the middle house. So we rented that house out, and we rented Anchorage down there, and they were about a wash, and we lived there for a year so that I could get that 18 months, and then we sold Pleasant Hill
And bought Aptos.
and bought Aptos.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Roger, again, I tried to get somebody to help me in Aptos to buy a house, and didn't have a whole lot of success getting anybody to help me. So Roger came down and he put the whole thing together again, and bang, we were in Aptos.
Well, we were there 10, 11 years or something, weren't we?
Yeah, that was.
Because that was third grade, and we were there until after I graduated high school.
Yep.
So
10 years.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was a good house. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was a good house.
Anchorage Avenue and Aptos were both in the same ward, Santa Cruz Second Ward, right?
Yep.
So even though you moved, you didn't have to change wards.
No.
I don't really have any memory of church prior to Santa Cruz Second Ward. So I don't know how active you guys were when you were in Bountiful, in Granger, in San Ramon, San Mateo.
In San Ramon, we were very active. We were there every Sunday.
In spite of the wine testing.
Huh?
In spite of the
In
wine
spite
tasting.
of the wine tasting. Yep. And then all of a sudden I'm in Colma Daly City, and families in San Ramon, and in Colma Daly City we worked 7 days a week. I mean, we were open 7 days a week. We weren't like Canals where we were locked up. So I was working a lot more hours, and I was gone a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But
so mom wasn't necessarily going to drag 4 kids, because by then Jennifer and Tracy are both here. Weren't going to drag 4 kids to church by herself. Is that what you're saying?
well, all 4 of them were there from the day one. when we got
In
to
California, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is.
But-
you were active in San Ramon,
Yeah.
and that's because you were there on Sundays to
Yep.
help.
But when we went over to that got a little distant. And that was, the commute was virtually 2 hours each way each day. So, and I'd be at the store from when it opened to when it closed, and then 2 hours, get home. So, you didn't see much of me. I didn't see much of you. That's the way it was. And then I went over to Colma, and when that blew up, luckily for me, like I say, Dean doesn't realize it, but I had been on his doorstep on my knees begging for the job. But it worked out that he didn't know that. So I got to write my ticket, and it was a good deal, and it worked out. But again, it didn't work out long because I came back in March, and I was gone in September to Roy Baldwin Motor Company. And Roy actually lived with us for a short time.
In Anchorage Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until you guys made comments years later. The way that home was set up, there was that little
Apartment.
Yeah, I don't know that it was an apartment. It felt more like a speakeasy because it was, you come in the entryway and there was a couple of steps down from first of all, you went up a couple of steps to the porch, and then they had that landing for the entryway, and then you had a couple of steps down into the family room, or you had a couple of steps down into this little, I don't want to call it a bay window, but the room was on a curve, right?
Yeah.
And it had a couple of beds in there, it had a wet bar in there, and it had a half bath.
Yep.
And so I didn't even realize that place, was even part of that. What was behind that door? Didn't know until after Roy had moved out, and then all of a sudden the kids were allowed to go in there. But I didn't even know he was living there.
Yeah. Well, he slept there. That's basically what he did. He slept there. Very seldom did he even have a meal with us, because he was at the store and then he'd go get something to eat, or he just, that's where he was comfortable. And he got shared down there fairly quickly. They bought that house from that builder out there. A nice house, very, very nice house. And
Do they still own to this day, or have they since sold it? Do they still
sold
own it? They have sold it.
They sold it when they went to Palm Springs. When they bought in La Quinta, the first one was the first house they bought down there was more of a more like where I live now. Well, there were other units attached.
Okay.
But it was really nice. But then he built the home that I know. I don't know. The one Sharon's got now, I don't know, because she's built it just in the last couple of years. But it was really nice. It was running on the 6th hole of PGA West Stadium course. He'd walk out his back door, or if he wanted, he'd just drive his golf cart out there, because he had one of those too. And he was on the tee for the 6th hole, and he'd play around and come back and go home. But he liked that, and he also had a little fishing stream out there, but he didn't do much fishing up there. He went to Montana to fish. But he, it was a very nice place. Very nice.
Anyway, so Anchorage Avenue, we were there a whole year. That's about all, because the lease was about a year, probably a year's lease, and by then you were established, had your 18 months, and were able to sell Pleasant Hill and buy Aptos, and we moved in there. I was now in the 3rd grade when we moved in there. The Waltons, they were fast friends, right? Even when you were in Anchorage to Aptos.
Yeah, and the Jensens. Jensens and the Waltons, Pearsons. Those were all pretty close. There was another family too.
Well, that neighborhood that we moved into had the Weavers in it and the Chandlers in it, right? Ed Chandler and his wife. I don't remember what his wife's name was.
I don't either. I actually got to be better friends with him when they got here.
Right. And then Daltons were in that up there, and so were the Smeeds. Those were all scattered around. Daltons and Smeeds were down some little windy country road, but they were still connected. You'd still get there from the neighborhood that we were in.
Yeah, that's where
And then-
Russell was when the earthquake happened.
And then later the Turnquists
Yeah,
were part of that
Yeah.
that neighborhood. Her parents lived there, and then they later joined the church.
and there are a bunch of kids around that you ran around with, Ryan and
Yeah, they weren't members of the church, but
No.
they were two brothers, Reed and Rye,
yeah,
were two brothers that
one's
lived.
dead.
Yeah, Rye passed away,
Yeah.
golly, at least 10, maybe 15 years ago.
Yeah,
Maybe even 20 years ago. It's been a long time.
yeah,
But yeah, they were across the street and a few houses down. But one brother was older than me, and one brother was younger than me. So I fit right in the middle, and so we got along great. Just
Yeah.
played with them. In fact, I was probably the buffer in the middle of them, so that they weren't killing each other.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
sibling rivalry and whatnot. All right, so we stayed the longest in the Santa Cruz Second Ward. And I want to say you were in an elders quorum presidency, then you were the elders quorum president, and
Yep.
had a couple of different. Mom was at one point primary president, young women's president. I mean, that was probably the height of your guys' activity together
Mm-hmm.
before coming to back to Utah.
Yep.
What brought you back to Utah?
Combination of things. The first real push was the earthquake. That really had a devastating effect on your mother. I remember her saying,
Not that Utah doesn't have earthquakes, but
no, they do, but she says, I'm done. I don't want to be here. I want to go home. I want to go back to Utah.
Be close to family.
Yeah, and she liked that. She liked that aspect too. I mean, one of the things that we spurred each other once in a while about is before we even got married, I always said I want to be at least a long distance phone call away from my in-laws. She didn't like that. She liked that, and she liked to spend time with them. I didn't. When we'd come up here to Utah, you and the
Right, you'd send the advance party, and then you'd come join them and drive home.
sometimes, and then other times, when I was here, I would disappear. I'd go see Mike Letham's mom. I'd go see Hazel Doler. I'd go see the people that I cared about. You know, I never ever grew an attachment to the Bloods. I didn't dislike them, but they just didn't include me, and I didn't include them. And so when we were in Utah, I was either down at the Dolers, down at the Lethams, or running around with one of my friends from
High school, or
Yeah.
or what was your attorney friend, Blackham or something?
Don Blackham.
Blackham, you go look him up.
Yeah, Don died right after we came back to Utah.
So in 1990 or 91,
Yeah.
something like
Yeah,
that.
you were probably on your mission.
I was on my mission, yeah. So the earthquake was one factor.
Mhm.
Her aging parents wanting to get back because she had a sister living here. She had. At what point did Paul and Sana move to Idaho? That was after I went on my mission. But
Yeah.
did they move? But
Yeah.
they moved probably shortly after you guys
Yeah,
moved.
very
back to-
short, very shortly.
So they weren't out there any longer. So Becky's here. Byron's in Minnesota. Paul and Sana. Paul becomes Chris up in Idaho.
Actually, he became Chris when he was in our house.
Right. No, I know that. But I just meant just to
Yeah,
reference who we're talking about. He is.
The other factor that I want to slip before, because we only got 2 minutes, is Love Chevrolet. Steve DeAnda, who was graduating from Berkeley. And the deal I had with
Frank.
Frank was I could be there and I'd be the general manager, and my job was to make Steve a very good general manager so that when I was ready, or when he was ready,
He would take over.
Yeah.
So you were supposed to mentor the Crown Prince.
yeah, and I did for a while, but he wanted to accelerate it. Frank and I talked about 10 years. He talked about 2 months. you know.
Steve was 2 months. He
Yeah,
was
he,
on
he
take
was
over.
really good. What's really sad is, you know, in that time, he made some really good progress. He's not a dumb kid. He was very smart. In fact,
Right.
he's done very well. He's retired now. But Steve met his wife there, and his wife had deep ties to Detroit. So when they got married and she became pregnant with triplets, she wanted to go to her mother to have the triplets. So
Well, we got
by that time,
we got 5 seconds, so we'll have
yeah,
to pick that story up on the next go
yeah,
round.
okay.